Hey everyone, welcome to Real or Fake Tech. We test real versus fake tech and reveal the truth behind gadgets.
I'm about to spend $34,000 in the next half hour buying the most futuristic tech currently available to actually purchase on planet Earth. Not concept videos, not renders, not coming in 2030 probably. Things you can genuinely order right now, today, and have delivered to your actual front door. AI glasses that can see and understand the world around you in real time. A robot dog that can navigate a room it's never seen before. A device that reads signals directly off your brain. A vehicle that drives itself with nobody touching the wheel. An exoskeleton you strap to your legs that lets you carry things you have absolutely no business carrying on your own. By the end of this video, I want to know exactly one thing. Is the future actually here right now, or is it still just very, very expensive marketing dressed up to look like science fiction? Let's find out together, starting right now. Rule S. Here's the plan for today. I've spent the last few weeks putting together a list of the 10 most genuinely futuristic pieces of consumer and near-consumer tech that exist in the world right now, and I'm going to buy every single one of them, live, on camera, with my own money. No sponsorships involved, no free review units sent to me in advance. Full retail price, out of my own pocket, exactly like anyone watching this would have to pay. For each item, I want to answer the same 3 questions every time. What does the company actually claim it can do? What does it actually genuinely do the moment I try it myself, with no cherry picking? And is this something a normal person would realistically want in their life, or is it just an extremely expensive party trick that looks good in a 30-second ad? At the very end, I'm going to score every single item on a scale from pure gimmick all the way up to this genuinely changes how I live day to day, and we'll add it all up. Let's start with the one I was, if I'm honest, genuinely nervous to even put on my face. AI smart glasses, $399. These look from across the room like a completely normal pair of glasses. Same lens size roughly, same overall weight. Nothing sci-fi about the design at all. Which, if you think about it for a second, is genuinely the entire point of a product like this. Put them on, and hidden inside the frame there's a tiny camera, a microphone, and a set of tiny speakers built directly into the arm so only you can hear anything. I ask it out loud, what am I looking at? Pointed at a random object sitting on my desk, and within about 2 seconds, a calm voice in my ear correctly identifies exactly what it is, gives me a short, accurate description, and even tells me roughly how much it costs new. I repeat this 5 more times with completely different objects scattered around the studio, on purpose picking a few obscure ones, and it gets 4 out of 6 of them completely correct, misidentifies one thing entirely as something else, and gets one only partially right. Then I try the translation feature, because out of everything on today's entire list, this is the one that genuinely sounds the most like science fiction on paper. I get a colleague to speak to me in a language I don't personally understand, and through the earpiece, I hear a translated version, maybe a second and a half behind real-time speech. It's not flawless by any means. There's a noticeable lag, and longer, more complex sentences occasionally get slightly mangled in translation, but for a pair of glasses doing this entirely in real time, sitting on my face, it is genuinely one of the single most impressive things I have tried on this channel all year. Battery life claim printed on the box is 6 hours of typical mixed use. I wore them, actively using the camera identification and audio translation features on and off throughout, for just under 4 hours before the battery indicator hit critical, and the display started flashing a warning. Verdict. On a scale from gimmick to life-changing, a solid 7 out of 10. This is genuinely the first item on today's entire list that I could actually see myself reaching for and wearing every single day without thinking twice about it. The robot dog, $3,200. This thing arrives in a hard case, roughly the size of a large suitcase, and unfolding it for the very first time is genuinely one of the stranger experiences I've had filming for this channel. 4 jointed metal legs, a small sensor array where a head would normally be, and a companion app that lets you either directly control it or switch it into a semi-autonomous mode. First test! I set it down in the middle of the studio floor and tell it, through the app, to simply follow me around. It takes about 3 seconds to visually lock onto me, and then it just follows, weaving around furniture, adjusting its walking pace when I speed up or slow down, catching itself convincingly and correcting its footing when I intentionally nudge it slightly off balance with my foot. It is unsettling, genuinely, in a way I did not expect a piece of walking metal to be unsettling. I take it outside into the parking lot next and try the obstacle navigation mode properly. I set up a small improvised course using cardboard boxes and traffic cones and simply tell it, through the app, to reach a marked point on the far side. It picks its way through almost the entire course cleanly, pausing twice to visibly reassess the terrain ahead of it, and only clips a single cone near the very end of the run. For a machine navigating completely unfamiliar terrain, with zero prior map of the space, that's genuinely impressive engineering. Then I test the one thing I know everybody watching is going to ask about in the comments regardless. Can it actually do anything remotely useful? Or is it purely a novelty? The app has a built-in delivery mode where you can strap a small container onto its back and send it to a specific saved location. I load it up with a bottle of water, send it walking across the entire studio to a colleague sitting at his desk, and it delivers the bottle successfully, stopping perfectly in front of him and waiting patiently. Genuinely useful for the average person's daily life right now? Honestly, not yet. Genuinely one of the most technically impressive machines I have ever had in this studio. Without question, yes, verdict. A 6 out of 10. Incredible, genuinely jaw-dropping engineering underneath, but I still cannot think of a daily use case for a normal person that justifies this price tag today. The brand Signo headband, $249. This is a slim, lightweight headband with a handful of small sensors that rest gently against your forehead and behind each ear, and it claims to read your brainwave activity in real time, translating that raw signal into simple digital commands, plus detailed focus and relaxation tracking over the course of your day. I put it on and open the companion app, which asks me to sit completely still for roughly a minute while it calibrates a baseline reading, purely thinking about relaxing as much as I can. Then it drops me straight into a simple game where the entire goal is to keep a small floating ball suspended in the air purely using your mental focus level. The more genuinely focused I am, the higher the ball rises up the screen. My first attempt is genuinely difficult. The ball barely lifts off the ground at all. By my fourth attempt, after the app coaches me a bit on breathing technique and mental focus cues, I'm noticeably, measurably better at controlling it, which either means the device is reading something real happening in my brain, or I've simply gotten better at performing focus for a video game. And I am genuinely not entirely sure which explanation is more accurate here. What actually impressed me more than the little game, honestly, was the longer session focus and attention tracking. I wore the headband for about 90 minutes while working completely normally at my desk, and the app produced a detailed graph afterwards showing a clear, obvious dip during a stretch where I was genuinely mentally checked out and quietly scrolling my phone instead of actually working. That correlation felt real to me, in a way the little floating ball game didn't quite manage. Verdict, a 5 out of 10. The underlying science behind it seems genuinely legitimate, but as a daily practical tool for most people's lives, it currently sits closer to curiosity than necessity. The Felfen-driven go-kart. Okay, quick disclaimer before this one, because I know someone's going to bring it up. This isn't a full self-driving car, because those genuinely aren't legally available to just buy and privately own yet in most places on Earth. But this is a small, fully autonomous single-seat vehicle built specifically for private roads and large properties, and it is functionally completely self-driving. $18,500, which is by a huge margin the single biggest purchase on today's entire list. I climb in, set a destination point on a small private test course using the built-in touchscreen map, and take my hands completely off the controls, resting them in my lap on purpose. It pulls away smoothly from a standstill, takes a curve at a sensible, comfortable speed, slows down appropriately as it approaches a parked car placed deliberately in the mock course, and reroutes cleanly around it without me touching a single thing. This is genuinely one of the strangest physical sensations I have ever had filming a video for this channel. Sitting in a moving vehicle on a real road surface with your hands doing absolutely nothing at all. I try to actively trip it up next, because I don't trust anything until I've tried to break it on camera. I have a colleague deliberately walk out from behind a parked vehicle at a safe, pre-agreed testing speed. It stops with several feet of clearance to spare, well before I personally would have reacted if I'd been driving it manually myself. I then try a much tighter obstacle course, cones spaced uncomfortably close together, and it handles roughly 80% of it cleanly, clipping exactly one cone on a particularly sharp, tight turn near the middle of the course. Verdict: an 8 out of 10 for the underlying technology itself. Genuinely astonishing to actually sit inside and experience firsthand. But at this price, and for a vehicle that legally can't go anywhere near a public road yet, it's very much a preview of the future rather than a practical purchase for most people today. The AI Companion Robot, $899. This is a small tabletop robot, roughly the size of a large speaker, with an expressive animated face displayed on a built-in screen and a genuinely impressive conversational AI running underneath it all. I sit down across from it and just start talking to it like I genuinely would talk to another person in the room. It holds a completely natural conversation, remembers something small I mentioned to it 4 minutes earlier without me having to repeat myself, cracks a genuinely funny, well-timed joke at one point that catches me off guard, and its little animated screen face reacts with expressions that sync surprisingly well with the actual tone of what it's saying at any given moment. I ask it to help me rough out a plan for the rest of today's shoot, and it gives me genuinely useful, well-structured suggestions back. Where it noticeably falls down is anything requiring real physical, visual awareness of the world around it. I ask it to look directly at a product sitting on my desk and describe it back to me, and its built-in camera can clearly see the object. But its actual description of it comes back vague and fairly generic. Nowhere near as sharp or specific as the smart glasses from earlier in this exact video. Verdict: a 6 out of 10. As a purely conversational companion, genuinely impressive and surprisingly natural. As anything beyond that, still fairly limited right now. The personal exoskeleton, $5,400. This straps onto both legs and your lower back, with small electric motors built into each hip joint. Designed primarily to assist with heavy lifting and repetitive walking. Originally built for warehouse and industrial labor, but genuinely available to buy for personal use too if you want one. Strapping it on for the very first time is genuinely a bit awkward, and it takes about 10 minutes working through the included setup guide before it's properly calibrated to my body. Once it's on and configured, I try the single most obvious test I could think of. Lifting a heavy box directly off the studio floor. Something sitting right around 40 kilograms, which under completely normal circumstances I would not be remotely comfortable lifting alone without help. With the exoskeleton fully engaged, I can genuinely feel the motors kick in right as I bend my knees to lift, and the box comes up noticeably, measurably easier than it has any right to. I then run a direct comparison test. Same exact box, same exact lift. Exoskeleton switched completely off this time. The difference is immediately, obviously apparent the moment that assist isn't there anymore. My lower back and legs feel it right away, within seconds. Walking around the studio wearing it normally for about 20 minutes afterward, there's a subtle but genuinely real reduction in fatigue, specifically on stairs, where the hip assist noticeably kicks in on every single step up. Verdict: a 7 out of 10. This is genuinely the one item on today's entire list that felt the most immediately, tangibly, physically useful to me personally. Assuming your actual job or lifestyle involves repetitive heavy lifting on a regular basis, the holographic Displuski, $1,750. This is a small, fully enclosed display unit that projects a genuinely three-dimensional looking image floating freely in open air directly above the device itself, with absolutely no glasses required to see the effect. My first impression, walking slowly around it from a few different angles, is honestly one of the most wow moments of this entire video. A detailed 3D model of a shoe rotates in mid-air above the device, and as I physically move my head left and right around it, the image genuinely appears to shift perspective convincingly, exactly like I'm looking at a real, solid, physical object, rather than a flat screen at all. Then I try to actually use it for something genuinely practical, instead of just staring at demo content. Importing a 3D model of a product I'm reviewing next week and examining it closely from angles I simply couldn't get from normal flat product photos. It genuinely, properly works, and for certain professional use cases, specifically product design, medical visualization, that sort of thing. This feels like a real useful tool, and not just an expensive toy for showing off. The catch, and there's always a catch, content genuinely has to be specifically formatted for this exact device, and the current library of ready-made compatible content is still fairly small right now. Verdict: A 7 out of 10 for the sheer wow factor alone, plus genuine niche professional usefulness, held back somewhat by limited available content today. The fast smart contact lenses, $650 for a development kit, and full transparency here before I go any further, these are not yet approved for extended, all-day wear in most places, so I'm testing them in a short, carefully supervised session rather than wearing them around all day, like everything else on this list. They're designed to display very basic information directly layered over your natural vision, the time, a simple notification icon, that kind of minimal information. Putting one in carefully, with guidance from the included kit, and looking directly toward a bright neutral background, I can genuinely see a faint glowing readout hovering in the corner of my vision, clearly showing the current time. It's noticeably dim, and it genuinely takes real conscious effort to focus on it rather than the actual world behind it, but it undeniably, genuinely works exactly as advertised. Verdict: a 4 out of 10 today, purely because of how early stage and genuinely limited the current version still is. But the simple fact that this exists at all, outside of a research lab, sitting in my hand and then in my actual eye, felt like the single most genuinely futuristic 5 minutes of this entire video. TAI translator earpiece, $229. A small standalone earpiece entirely separate from the glasses I tried earlier, purely focused on real-time spoken translation, and specifically claiming to work completely offline with absolutely no internet connection required at any point. I put it in, deliberately switch on airplane mode on my phone to genuinely force it fully offline, and have the same colleague from the smart glasses segment earlier speak to me again, this time in a different language than before. The translation comes through with a noticeably longer delay than the online version built into the glasses, closer to 3 or 4 seconds behind real speech, but it genuinely, reliably works entirely offline, which is a genuinely useful feature specifically for traveling through areas with poor or non-existent signal. Verdict: a 6 out of 10. Meaningfully slower than its online competition earlier in this video, but the genuine offline capability alone makes it well worth including on today's list, $1,100. Last item on today's entire list, and honestly the one I personally walked in most skeptical about. You load specific food-grade cartridges into the machine, design or simply select a shape through the companion app, and it slowly builds up a small dessert layer by layer, essentially working like a regular 3D printer that happens to print in chocolate and dough instead of plastic filament. I run it on a simple preloaded design first, and it takes about 18 minutes total to produce a small but genuinely detailed chocolate sculpture, far more intricate and precise than I could ever manage doing it by hand. Taste-wise, it's exactly as good as whatever ingredients you happen to load into the cartridges, which is to say, perfectly fine, but nothing especially special, purely on its own merits. Verdict: a 5 out of 10. A genuinely fun novelty to have around, more toy than practical tool, but noticeably more consistently functional than I honestly expected walking in this morning. So running total across the entire day: AI smart glasses, a 7, robot dog, a 6. Brain signal headband, a 5, self-driving go-kart, an 8, the single highest score of the entire day by some distance. AI companion robot, a 6, personal exoskeleton, a 7, holographic display, a 7, smart contact lenses, a 4, AI translator earpiece, a 6, and finally the 3D food printer, a 5. Add that all together, and the average score across every single item today sits right around 6.1 out of 10. So, is the future actually here? Genuinely, more than I expected walking into this video. Almost every single item on today's list did what it claimed to do, at least to some meaningful, real degree, which honestly surprised me, because normally when I test bold claims like these on this channel, at least half of them turn out to be complete nonsense the moment I actually try them myself. The self-driving go-kart and the AI smart glasses are genuinely the two things out of everything I bought today that I could realistically see myself actually using regularly going forward, not purely as a novelty for a video, but as something that quietly, meaningfully makes everyday life a bit easier or more interesting. Is any single one of these things essential yet for the average person's daily life? Honestly, no, not really, not yet, not for most people watching this. But the sheer pace of what's now actually shippable in a real box to your actual front door has clearly moved considerably faster than I personally expected it to going into today. Ask me again in 2 years' time. And I genuinely believe half of everything on this list is going to look completely normal by then. If you want to see me put any single one of these 10 things through a deeper, dedicated full review, let me know exactly which one down in the comments, and I promise you I will make it happen.